All right, folks. Hello and welcome to Hacking Attention, where we look at how people hack attention. Joining me is Deepthi. Deepthi, please introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, thanks Arvind for having me on this. I think I've known Arvind in the capacity where we have been hacking attention because we do game-based learning and we have worked together to facilitate various sessions for other facilitators as well. So I am a game-based facilitator. I have been doing this for the last 10 plus years. I work with corporate participants to try and drive behavioral outcomes to solve business problems.
That's got to be the most corporate intro ever. Anyways, my most important question to you, Deepthi, is what do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? I read, I do yoga, I like baking, I write poetry.
All this at the same time?
No.
Okay, cool. I was just curious how bakery and yoga go together.
These are the no, not at the
What kind of stuff do you read?
Right now I'm reading something called The Secret Garden. Apparently it was written really long ago. I don't really think I have a big genre as such. I like reading anything and everything as long as it's not too like scientific-y and or war themed. I do not like war themes. So
I'm right now reading this thing called Dungeon Crawler Carl, and it's about this guy and his cat who get teleported into a dungeon and it becomes a role-playing game, right? And they have to like kill monsters, they have to level up, and it's like Diablo or Dungeons and Dragons meets literature.
okay.
The cool
Oh,
thing though
don't
is
wheelhouse, but okay.
the reason why it's so awesome is because the narrator, uh, Jeff Hayes. I hope I don't mess up the author and the thing. Or Matt Dinneman is the author. Jeff Hayes is the narrator from Sound Booth Theater, and he's so good. He's like a virtuoso that he just does like so many different voices. So he voices himself, and he voices a female cat called Princess Donut, and like an entire slew or a host of other characters. I'm like, how on earth is he doing this much? It's like
I think you
insane.
like because you want to do that too.
I do. Actually, my deepest, darkest goal is to become a stand-up comic on Instagram. You know, making jokes about Dungeons and Dragons, of course, and games, and board games, and board gamers.
The book I'm reading about, there's a little girl who's sort of living in this some part of England in on a moor, and she doesn't know anything about anything, and she was this spoiled little kid, and
Mhm.
she's supposed to find this secret garden. I'm waiting for that to happen now. So I don't know. It's supposed to possibly get exciting after that. Right now, I'm wading through that Yorkshire accent and I'm reading it and reading it and trying to get what the hell they're even saying. So yeah.
Yeah. You know, one thing I really hate is these books which have these really abstract titles, right? And then you read that, hey, it's going to be about something, you know, like something concrete, but no, the entire book turns out to be a metaphor.
Like
Does that work for you?
no, like what? Like Catcher in the
Like
Rye.
like like yeah, like rye is some sort of a pulse, and who is there? Why are they catching? Right? I've never read the book, so I
Oh,
don't
I
know.
read it and it was so heavily spoken about and people love it and swear by it and I finished the book and I was like, what was the point? So,
I was as a very young child, I was forced to read this book called "To Kill a Mockingbird." There is no mockingbird in the entire book. I'm like, you know, there was like fourth grade, fifth grade or something. I'm reading the book. I'm like, huh,
they
okay,
probably get
where's the bird?
this, These are
We're
like
probably going to be
trolled for this. These are classics.
place. These are classics, but they're not for me,
Yeah.
right? And that brings us very clearly to the concept of attention, right? Oh, you saw that segue? Mwah, golden. Which is, you know, like we pay attention to something because we want something out of it, right? Sometimes our interaction with things, it could be experiences, books, movies, whatever, they all have some sort of expectation, internally or externally. But there could be a mismatch, and that could be a good thing in terms of, like, let's say, stand-up comedy, where you're expecting a certain punchline and then it goes off a different
Or
way.
like a thriller,
Or
suspense thriller.
suspense thriller. Yes, yes. Murder mysteries. Like, oh, the butler did it. You know, shit like that. And that's fun. But it could also go like sideways, right? So my first question to you in this context, Deepthi, is you do facilitation. You work with people. You work with like some stuck up people. You work with nice people. You work with all kinds of people, right? And you're a mom as well. And there's like attention. Maybe you're not thought about it consciously, but I'm pretty sure that attention is very relevant to you in everything that you do. Could you talk to me about different ways attention pops up in your life?
Um, so I think yeah, attention popping up. Like, if I have to talk about, like, even the books that you were talking about, there are
Mhm.
certain things that grab my attention because I like them. So it comes from a place of interest, let's say, or because of others telling me that, hey, you know what, this was interesting. And whether it's a sitcom or a movie or a book, and then your attention is drawn there because you value the people who are giving you these inputs, and then you kind of get into it. In other ways, I feel like today's everywhere around me, it feels like attention spans are really, really short. Like with my
Yeah.
daughter, I kind of feel like the same things I've said. If she's really interested in something, she will be invested in it, and time will just pass by. So, like
Hmm.
when you're in the flow, like you don't even
Mm.
realize, and you're just sort of doing things, and you really, really enjoy it. Like she had a friend over, they were playing with Legos, and for a long time they were so quiet. I had to go in and check, just see they were
Have you
okay.
murdered anybody yet? Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes those things happen, but I think if you're not interested, and then attention is really hard to get. And I think that's the tallest order when I go into corporate classrooms because people don't want to be there. They're
Mm.
usually nominated by somebody else, their managers. It's a tick box activity, it's a mandatory thing. Somebody else has put you up for it, and you haven't put your hand up yourself. And even if you
Mm.
it's because it was required of you to do so and not because you wanted to do so. So I feel like it's got a lot to do with wanting to do something. Like I want to
Mhm.
go watch a movie. I don't want
Mhm.
to maybe read a book about war. Okay, for me. So
You really don't like war, do you?
I know. I don't even war
No,
in
no, I respect that.
well, yeah.
Okay. So there are many different tangents we could go off on, right? So one is whether I am, I'm signing up. If I have raised my hand to be a part of this experience, that's one. Second thing is how attention spans are dropping. And third was, and it's a concept that you mentioned, flow. And that's very close to my heart, right? Because Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, I think that's how you say his name, uh, has got this epic, diagram where it's like skill versus difficulty. There are three paths ahead of us. Which way do you wish to go, Deepthi?
I could go either or. So you can pick.
Let's go with flow because I like flow and it
Oh,
flows. So the gist of the idea is that there is this band. If you were to plot a graph between our skill level at a task and the complexity or the difficulty of the task, there is a central band that forms where our skill level and the difficulty of the task that we're encountering are balanced to some degree, more or less balanced. If the task is too complex, we get disheartened and we give up. And if the task is too easy compared to our skill level, we check out because it's boring, right?
not
Now maintaining that,
Yeah.
yeah,
I've actually experienced this in real time. I was
uh-huh,
a teacher for a while. And
mm-hmm,
so I was teaching in a slum for
mm-hmm,
third graders.
mm-hmm,
And I used to manage language and math and science largely.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And I had 25 children in the room. And I've experienced this real time because it was difficult to go in with one lesson plan for that classroom.
mm-hmm.
I
Why is
had
that?
I had to make 3 different ones, exactly what you said. There were kids who were really good at, let's say, math,
Mm,
addition, and if I gave them what was the rigor for third graders, they
mm-hmm,
were really bored and checked out, and they would get disruptive, and they would
right.
start, bugging and annoying everybody else in the classroom.
Mm-hmm,
So it didn't work for them. And if I gave, there were some kids obviously in the middle, right? And they were okay with the level of rigor for the math problems and they were sticking with it and they were trying to figure it out. And there were some kids who were subpar because not every child learns everything at the same time or speed, right?
yeah,
Like how Sal Khan, that's what he calls himself, right? The Khan Academy guy. Like it's
right.
like their foundation was not strong. So it was so hard, they weren't even trying.
Hmm.
Every lesson, I would have to create three different worksheets because
Hmm.
I had in my mind been able to see that, these kids needed a little more pushing, little more challenge to meet that flow, to get
Hmm.
into that flow. And I think
Right.
true of adults as well. Even now, it doesn't really change. I honestly think that any set of people that I'm working with kind of fall into a bell curve of sorts.
Mhm.
And there are these people who are super enthusiastic and will want to learn and are invested, even if I do a bad job.
Into
And
cutlets. Yes.
yes, and there are people who will not be interested even if I bring PC Sarkar and do like a magic show or, there are acrobats flying off the walls. It doesn't matter. They're just not invested. But the
Hmm.
people in the middle, I think that's the golden group, right? That's the
Hmm.
majority, and they go where the energy goes. So I feel like that's the group that you're trying to nudge and sort of get them to go with your flow and what you want
Mm.
to achieve from a particular session.
When you say this, there's something that stands out because skills like mathematics are foundational, right? Like I need to know math, I need to know basic literacy skills and stuff like that. And that is something that our educational system is supposed to take care of,
Mhm,
right? And that makes sense from a school context.
mhm.
But you also mentioned of how there is like this bell curve and maybe like 90% is either in the middle or highly engaged, uh, and often in corporate workshops we end up helping participants acquire soft skills as they're called. uh, do you face like similar challenges or similar gradation in terms, not in terms of engagement, but like skill level, like let's say we're talking about empathy as a skill, right? Do you still need to make three different lesson plans for empathy when you're teaching in a corporate environment?
I kind of feel like some people grasp things faster than the others, even if they're invested.
Right.
Some of these ideas can be complex. Let's say we're talking about leadership. Like empathy is still like something maybe I have experienced. Maybe
Hmm.
you give enough examples, people are sort of able to relate to it. But if you bring in like frameworks that are a little more layered or little
Right.
more.
Let's take leadership, for example, right?
Yeah, so
Talk
if
to
we
me
take
about that.
leadership, for example, and I talk about situational leadership, and I'm trying to get people to see that, you need to be a different leader in each of these quadrants, and you need to show up differently because different members in your team require
Hmm.
something else out of you. So I try to stay away from all the jargon. Like I try to stay
Hmm.
away from high, this, low, that, blah, 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 and get them confused. I usually go with metaphors because
Hmm.
then I know I'm kind of at the risk of sounding pompous, like I'm kind of dumbing it down. And
Please, there is no risk. Be as pompous as you wish.
so I kind of like try to dumb it down and try to give them metaphors that kind of stick in their head rather than trying to
Mhm.
look at the quadrants and remember which is high, which is low, and things like that. And usually that also helps like getting a few laughs. Like you have the directing style of leadership, which is
Mhm.
almost like what was Indian parenting, like when we were kids, not today, possibly.
No matter what we do, parents are disappointed.
No, I tell
Oh,
you, you do. That's it.
different Indian parenting. Okay, got it.
Like there's no two-way communication. I don't want feedback, no nothing. I tell you and you
Right.
do. That's it.
Uh huh.
And I tell them stuff like that. I get a few laughs and people are like, oh, okay, I understand it now because
Mm.
it's a lot more relatable and I have their attention, coming.
Hmm. It appears to me that there seem to be multiple axes here at work. One is about how invested people are,
Hmm.
and second is their ability to pick up concepts or new information or skills.
I
Is
also
there any? Go
third
on.
one. I
Which
think
is
it's my level of motivation. Like
yours or the learners?
the learners, like as an
Okay.
individual participant, my motivation in general,
Mhm.
right? And different people are motivated by different things.
Mhm.
And maybe I'm an introvert, and if I'm having a group discussion as a way to facilitate something, then maybe I'm not really going to put up my hand, even though I'm vested. I want to learn this, but I will not. So, one of the things is to also think about how motivated is this person and what motivates a particular group. Some people really want to just belong or make meaning or control how
Mhm.
the conversation goes. And when they
Right.
do that, they feel more powerful or maybe more in control, or, the recognition that everybody's looking at me. And that gives them, you know, some kind of a high, some kind of an energy.
Dopamine hit or
Yeah,
oxytocin hit.
absolutely. So I feel like at the beginning of the session, while I don't have like a script or a blueprint for it, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, you read a room, you're able to figure out, which set of people will like what kind of thing. And then you kind of, sort of play it like that. Or if you have to do
Hmm.
group activities, then you put the quiet ones with these kind of guys and,
Hmm.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting. Now, obviously, motivation is important, right? But have you ever encountered situations where motivation is at odds with skill level, right? Like, I really, really want to do something, but I have no clue how to go about this. Have you seen learners with those sort of situations?
Not really. Even if that's the case, because we don't really have a testing mechanism of sorts, they
Mhm.
don't really say that. I mean, I'm a big believer in setting psychological safety and being vulnerable myself when I start sessions. I always go
Mhm.
in saying I don't have all the answers, or sharing, like, even if I'm late, I'll admit to it, joke about it, all of that, because I feel like it invites the participants to be vulnerable as well. But I don't think it goes to the point of people saying, "Hey, you know what? I don't get it at all."
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't think
Eh,
like
no, no, yeah, go on, finish it. What were you saying?
I think when I did like stuff on unconscious bias, for example, and the guards dropped, the most I could get was one lady who said, "I have curly hair and my sister has straight hair, and all my life I have been told that I look like a vamp because of my hair." And I was like, "Oh my god, what just happened?"
I that is important to them, yes, and I am struggling to fit that into my worldview because obviously, and this kind of makes sense, right? Unconscious bias. I really don't
Yes,
care about hair.
like
I'll
talking
just
about
have
like
some.
And I have had curly hair all my life. Like I would not go and straighten it and things like that. But I feel like when the guards drop, that's when like attention is there, people want to share and all of that. But I think nobody really, at least I haven't had the experience where people put up their hand and said, "You know what, I really don't understand what you're saying." Maybe they
Mm,
have asked me to repeat myself to explain something a
mhm.
couple of times, or maybe I have gone to a smaller group, like on a table, and explained something, but nothing beyond that.
Hmm. Okay. In our conversation so far, you mentioned a couple of different tools that I have gathered you use to capture attention. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'd love for you to expand this list, right? So, one is humor, right?
Mhm.
Of course, you are quite well versed in that. I'm not calling you a joke, but I am saying that, you are. Sorry, I had to slip that in. What I am saying, though, my dear friend, is you use self deprecating humor as a very potent weapon to, reach out. Second, you also mentioned about psychological safety and how that kind of helps people drop their guard so that, that also
Yes.
there's something happening over there, right? Do you have any other tools that you use?
One of the biggest one for me is connection, like trust and connection. And like you said, even with my daughter, for example, and I feel like connection over everything, honestly, because
Hmm.
what like when you walk into a room, even for I'll give you two examples, okay? One with my daughter and
Please.
one corporate world, and then maybe we can see how that plays out. So when my daughter's having a meltdown of sorts and
Hmm.
she's not able to, like, big emotions are taking over, I always do connection over correction, always, like, because I
Okay.
feel like once I have that moment with her and have helped her regulate, because I think it's really idiotic for adults to feel like they can shout more or say go to your corner or whatever, because she's 6 and she doesn't
Right.
have, like, literally her brain hasn't really grown these parts which can do that job. So
Right.
basically the idea is to sort of help her calm down
Hmm.
and regulate, so that once she's emotionally regulated, and I can then, once that connection is formed, then I can do whatever it is I want to do. Like maybe it's reprimanding, maybe it is explaining something, whatever, right?
Sure. Right.
Similarly, in a corporate classroom, I think when we kind of end up having conversation, I think the first few minutes of
Hmm.
every session are really, really critical. They are sizing
Hmm.
you because you're an external person. They're like, do they even know my reality? Like, why is she here to tell me shit? I know how to
Hmm.
do my job, etc. They're sizing you up.
Hmm.
And you're sizing them up too. You are also trying to read the room. You're trying to figure out, who is where on that bell curve and, all of that. So I think when you're able to use some of the things that you've said and create that connection, like, why do I say Indian style of parenting? Or sometimes with situational leadership, I even go on to like a complete tangent and I give examples between husband and wife and
Mhm.
mismanagement of expectations. And I always get laughs, right? Because people have no idea why I'm talking to them about this, but they have opinions and it's so
Mhm.
relatable. And once they have done that, and then I say, how expectations are mismanaged here. Like if you have people in your team who are ready for delegation and you're micromanaging, the same kind of ruptures can happen. So then they
Mm.
can like, oh, okay, now we see it. But once
Mhm.
able to have that connect, right? Okay, she
Mhm.
gets me. She sees my world. She understands my reality. Like one of the companies have had a long-standing programs. Like I've done more than 75 for middle managers.
Wow. Okay. Go on.
75 sessions or so and counting. And so I know their reality because they have pressure from the top and bottom. I know the company hasn't given them hikes for 3 years, for example. So when we are talking about difficult conversations and I bring that up and I kind of
Mhm.
do a bit where I'm the manager and what they would have said to their teammates, like, hey, you know what? I'm so sorry. You didn't get your hike. I know you did a stellar job and you got like a 5-star rating, but I'm in the same place and blah, blah, blah. I immediately get laughs because it's so relatable. And I have
Mm.
made that connection. And I feel like once the connection is established, then it doesn't matter. They're willing
You
to
know,
listen to you. And
I I think what you're saying is like 300% true because I have seen you interact with strangers and I'm like 90% of the time picking up my jaw off the floor because you just walk into a room and it's like everybody's your chatty buddy. You've known them for like eons and like, oh, garu, bagunda, babiru. I'm like, Macha, what is happening? And then there I am in my very strong, not so Indian accent, and I'm talking, and you're there like you're talking about, the Maha Suite or something that we saw when we were in Hyderabad, and you're able to. This is a beauty about interviewing friends or having conversation. We have inside jokes,
I
and
know.
others don't, and we don't have to tell them, right? Uh, but the point, the thing comes back to connection, right? And you know me, right? I have ADHD. I have a very distinct, and I'm putting it politely. Fuck it. I have a weird ass way of looking at life, right? And that does not match what majority of people look at life. And whenever I see you in your element, in action, when you're forming that connection, I'm like, is there a way to decode this? Because I know that forming that connection, like, is the first step in hacking that attention, right? Because if people say, like, people like us do things like this, and oh, that person's like me, so I'm going to pay attention to
Yeah.
them. And from what you're saying, something just unlocked for me, which is if I can introduce something on about which people will have opinions, then that's a great way to form a connection. Is that assumption, is that deduction true?
More than opinions, I feel like if you're able to introduce something where you feel you're able to reflect their reality
Mm.
and you're able to create that insight. Like, I'll give you another example from the Teach for India days, okay?
Hmm. Hmm.
So when I went in there, the community was most of the children's parents were rickshaw pullers, vegetable vendors, so on and so forth. Okay.
Hmm.
So for them, you understand what if their kid went back home and spoke in good English, you know what it can do for them, right?
Hmm.
So that's what I mean. Like you
Hmm.
kind of understand their reality and you work on that. So the first
Hmm.
months was really, really hard. There were days I
Hmm.
would go back home and cry because it was just overwhelming on a
Hmm.
lot of levels, right? It's a whole
Hmm.
other conversation. But what I focused on is to make sure two things. One,
Hmm.
I wanted these kids to speak English
Hmm.
because I wanted to get the buy-in from the community, right?
Got it.
And the second thing I did was to actually sell them hope,
Tell me
right?
more.
Because the kids were in this place where it felt hopeless and to climb out of the kind of reality that they were living in was too much. So all I
Right.
told them is if your dad had like one rickshaw, what are you aiming for?
Hmm.
Is it just two rickshaws or what do you want to do? And I
Hmm.
kind of exposed them to various different things. Like some of them said they wanted to be artists. So I got like pictures of Leonardo or Picasso or, just showed them like really, really different things. If you said you wanted to be an astronomer, just showed them different things. So obviously the children are not limited or jaded still, third graders. So they
Hmm.
just kind of picked up saying, I want to do this or I want to do that. And then you said, if you want to do that, you got to stay in school. And you want to do that, you have to be good at this.
Hmm.
You sort of make that connection and you're working it two ways because the connection is about like that community was a kind of place that my dad didn't feel safe sending me to.
Hmm.
And now when I go there and my kids have finished like 10th grade like a few years ago, I
Hmm.
still people will invite me to their homes and feed me. Like
Damn
big
good, man.
it's about the connection. It's
Hmm.
people remember how you make them feel. And honestly, I don't think it's a skill that I learned on my own. Like you should meet my dad. He has like mad people skills. Like he can
Will
go
he come
into
on the podcast too?
yes, I can
Go on.
like he can go into a fully booked restaurant like with no table and a huge line outside and dad will get a table. Like,
Hmm.
you don't even know what he will tell people or why they're treating him like that. Like, I was in Bombay once in the middle of the night. One random uncle came to pick me up because it's like, Shrikant ki beti aa rahi hai. How can she go home alone at this hour? And
Hmm.
drove like 1.5 hours to drop me off where I had to. I mean, like, I have bizarre stories. Like, I was here
Hmm.
on a summer camp or something here in Bangalore earlier, and we didn't have hot water where we were staying, and Dada got somebody to get hot water. So Dada has
Okay.
like mad skills. Yeah. So
Right. So coming back to connection.
like, do this.
Sorry, I spoke over. Can you repeat that, please?
I feel like as I was growing up, I kind of watched him do this. And I think
Hmm.
my sister and I picked up parts of it, but honestly, he's the OG.
Okay. Okay. So I am deducing or I'm understanding that connection is the first step to direct attention, right? Because once you have that connection, then it becomes quite easy to do
Yeah.
that. But if I was to ask you to say, okay, give me step by step instructions for me to connect with anyone, all right? I'm not turning you into a chat GPT prompt or something, but I am curious, right? You have observed your dad, and you seem to have internalized some of these things, and you seem to be doing it without thinking, right? So
Yeah.
if you had to turn that into like for someone like me, right, like an alien who's just landed and is trying to connect with fellow humans,
Yeah.
how would you
I-
recommend?
I've never articulated it like that, but I'm going to give it a spin on the go and see how that goes. I
Go
think
for it.
the first things is to remember their names, like
Okay.
super basic, and always
Mm-hmm.
address by their names. I do
Mm-hmm.
that watchmen with people like security who let me in, anybody, like always
Yep.
remember, thank them using their name and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Who is to just have a little bit of chat about just like a casual check-in.
Is this like small talk?
Yeah, a little bit to understand
Uh,
their reality. Like, because how
okay.
would I otherwise get it? Like, suppose I've been to this office and this lady has checked me in. She's given me an ID and I'm waiting because I'm early. Okay, this is true. This happened
Mm-hmm.
in Hyderabad when I went for a corporate workshop. So I was looking at my notes because this is one of those programs I kind of wanted to be a little more prepared. So she just says, "So what are you here for?" or something to that effect,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I tried to explain it to her, but it became really convoluted because it was about unconscious bias. So then I went on to give her examples that were regional or something that she would have experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And then talking, she's like, "Oh, you make people think. And that's amazing." And,
Wow.
just to have like, so by the time my co-fac came, like the co-facilitator who I was with, she knew my name. She was willing to like put my luggage in for me or get me a glass of water. It's just that I feel like people want to be seen. People want to be heard. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
think in today's world we have enough time for that. Even
Hmm.
for the tiniest connections. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what, and I keep it real, not because I have like a code or, you have to be genuine about it. You have to be genuinely interested.
Does- Doesn't that like drain your social battery?
No, I'm on the other extreme of you. So I enjoy
Hmm.
talking.
Aha. Yeah, for me, small talk is the pain. But okay, I understand how you might have spoken to the concierge staff one on one and formed a bond, right? It reminds me of like the love bombing that cults do to like new members. They're like, oh, you are everything. And then they love you, they shower you with attention and praise and whatever. Uh, I'm not saying they're doing that intentionally. It might be a part of, the modus operandi of the cult. But how do you establish connection with an entire room? Obviously one place you've gone, right? You've done 75 sessions for them, and you know them, you know their intricacies and stuff like that. But let's say you walk into a room that you've never been in before.
Even the 75 sessions is not like the same batch has come back to me.
Right.
Each batch is a new batch, but like
Mhm.
I kind of understand the background of, what their job might entail. So I think context is really important, right? When you're trying to
Mhm.
do some of this, context is really important. If you're talking to a 6-year-old, context is really important compared to when you're
Mhm.
talking to a middle manager or a large group as well. So if you're
Mhm.
able to get like, I think 60-ish% of the room and
Mhm.
you're able to land it, then it's okay. Like I have had
Mhm.
this gone sideways as well. When I went for the
Mhm.
first few sessions doing with Gen Z, like
Mhm.
usually I know when I say something how the audience will react and I might get
Right.
a here, etc., etc. Gen Z was a whole other animal
Mhm.
and looking at me, and I was like, okay, this is where game is playing really comes into it
Right.
helps because then you know something that people enjoy and you
Mhm.
bring it to the table. There's some excitement around it, and then you kind of
Mm.
build it from there.
Mm. Hold on to the whole game-based learning bit. There's we will unpack that. But just in the context of connection, right? A very interesting tidbit popped up in my reading where nowadays Netflix and other big studios, especially OTTs, are commissioning movies and other forms of content like dramas and whatnot with the explicit instruction that this stuff that's going on screen, they will be distracted because the audiences will have a second screen, right? In the sense that I have something running on TV, but I'm probably going to be distracted by WhatsApp or Instagram on my phone. And as a result, the content that is actually coming across that we see, right, is a lot more easier to process. Like even, if we don't have like 100% attention on that, it still becomes easier and easier to process. And this is, one of the coolest things that I've heard recently. And my takeaway from that is when we get to any sort of a situation that requires our attention, we need to simplify it, right? Earlier, you mentioned about how a classroom would have like the low, mid, and high, buckets of students. If we design for the lowest common denominator,
Absolutely.
then we can, pump it
Hence,
up. And
prefers and the examples that I gave you. Absolutely. I think I absolutely try to figure out what will get my last bencher to pay attention, and then
Mhm.
everybody else sort of falls in
I,
and
I I do love metaphors, right? And I also love stories as a vehicle to
yes.
package stuff up.
Yeah.
I also like diagrams, like drawing pictures and models and stuff like that, because
Fix.
it sticks, right?
Yeah.
And also that concept that you taught me, what is that? VARC, VARC models, wasn't it? Styles of learning,
Yes.
visual, auditory,
I
something,
I know.
kinesthetic. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, different ways of learning. So people have different ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I believe that game-based learning is a very versatile tool in that aspect, right? It really helps us not just with work, but also cater to the variety of people. Can you tell me about why and how you use game-based learning in your sessions?
So I think I kind of from the Teach for India thing when I segued into corporate learning or training of any
Hmm.
kind, I sort of fell into game based learning. So, in that sense, I think I didn't know any other way
Hmm.
uh, because I didn't do PPT led heavy sessions for the last 10 years, and I don't think I'm going to start now. But
Hmm.
what I see working the best is even the smallest tangible you bring into the classroom
Hmm.
people get excited. It could be just balloons, and you get them to
Hmm.
just pop balloons or bounce balloons, or it just doesn't matter. I feel like the minute you have tangibles, everybody's excited. I feel like everybody has like an inner child that's still sort of alive. And when you bring games, everybody sort of just unleashes and the guards drop and the manager and the team member and the CEO, everybody's playing. It's just wonderful to sort of let that kind of drop and
Hmm.
everybody involved. And you're
Hmm.
playing win, you're excited,
Hmm.
um, all of that. So even with the examples of Gen Z, that's what saved me, right? So I've
Hmm.
done it for like senior folk or middle manager folk or even entrant level. And the reactions are same. It
Hmm.
doesn't matter, your designation or
Irrespective of which generation they're from.
irrespective of generation, irrespective of
Interesting.
experience, titles.
Why do you think that is the case?
Like I said, I think it's because, one, I think it's also because they're always surprised at how much fun
Mhm.
it is, and they walk in thinking it's going to be a boring PPT session, and then they're really happy they get to do something else. But I think it's really because people are there. There's a small part of us that still enjoys all of these things. Again, we don't have time and room for it.
Mm.
And how many of us still like play games? Not you.
Mm. Okay.
General
Yeah.
Janta, not you. And
The
because of
mango people.
playing things as well. So, but
Mm.
yeah, I feel like there's a dearth for it, right? Like
Right.
I remember even it's total tangent, but when we did this, Isha Foundation has this inner engineering, okay?
Mhm.
They actually took us for a whole day where they we just played games. Like to a field,
Really?
like just running around and dog in the bone or dodgeball and stuff you did in school. And it was
Uh huh.
so much fun.
Right. Right. And, this brings up a very important point because the moment you say games, my head jumps to like the stuff that I have behind, right? Board games and card games and like video games and whatnot. But those are not the only kind of games. And I'm assuming you're talking about other kinds of games. Enlighten me. What do you mean?
Yeah, so in the sense of the corporate classroom, I think there are games that are really designed for serious outcomes. While
Hmm.
we do want people to engage and lose themselves in the gameplay, we do want to see certain behaviors. So
Hmm.
sometimes you may rig it to have rules which bring out a certain persona or certain side of some people. Like if you
Hmm.
want to drive empathy, you might build a game that kind of pushes you to think or put yourself in the other person's shoes. Or if you're building a game around trust, you might build a game that is seemingly competitive where you mistrust each other in terms of information, etc., but you
Hmm.
drive a certain outcome. But because people are so engaged in terms of having fun, and some of these games don't even have like a clear outcome, like how you would
Okay.
technically design a game. Like there's no success criteria in some of these
There's no
games.
win state or
There's no
loss
win
state.
state at all. But it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Time they play it, we're just looking at the behaviors and people have
Hmm.
fun. Kind of ticks the boxes, in that sense.
Hmm. So what I'm hearing is games provide you with some specific ways to not just bring everybody to the same place in terms of attention, but because of the mechanics, because of the rules and the way the game is designed, you can point the attention to specific things like
Absolutely.
their behaviors or their personas or stuff like that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. But earlier you did mention that games also give us this this opportunity for us to engage in like our deep inner child, right? And so obviously games are serving that purpose, but they're
Yes.
also becoming vehicles or instruments that will allow us to reach certain epiphanies or at least new ways of thinking,
Yeah.
right? Have you ever struggled to balance the two?
Not really at all. No,
Hmm.
I don't think so.
And what, like, can you give me some examples of how you could use a game to direct attention to a specific behavior? For example, you mentioned like something about like trusting others, right? And like public information, hidden information, stuff like that. You
Yeah.
and I, we'd done something back in Hyderabad as well. Could you talk a little bit about how, like, one specific example of how you could use a game to drive attention to a specific topic? I don't want the specific details, but as a high level overview.
A simplistic one would be like a tabletop where we would blindfold a couple of people, and some people are able to see the material and have instructions, and they have to trust each other to work through a puzzle of sorts, let's say.
Hmm.
And it's really about me not having all pieces of information and relying on other people and having constraints like a blindfold, or sometimes we put people on mute or something really
Mhm.
simple, and
Mhm.
just kind of figure out how you work together and come together as a team. Sometimes you could, or even like a trading kind of a mechanism, right? Like I need something from you and you need something from me, but we have designed it in such a way that there is a supply demand and there is an abundance scarcity principles that come into play.
Right.
and because of which you feel like I'm against you, and we are
Mm-hmm.
sort of fighting for something that's very limited. But
Mm.
honestly, if everybody came together, you would have more of everything.
Mm.
Kind of pushing them to sort of think competitively, also because we are built like that, and it's easier to tap into that and then drive
Mm-hmm.
collaboration out of it to say, if you did this together, this would have been an outcome versus,
Mm.
you running actually.
So when I'm hearing this, my knee-jerk reaction is like, okay, this stuff will work in games. Real life is not like that, right? And so the attention that you had brought for me to look at a certain thing, wouldn't that like dissipate when you're trying to bridge that
So
to the real world?
honestly, participants do ask us that. So
Uh-huh.
how can you negate competition, etc. But usually I go with, like, different departments are at loggerheads with each other. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
have a finance team versus marketing, they literally have opposing priorities. Like the
Yep.
finance wants to make money and save money, and marketing wants to spend money, and tell the world about who you are. But you are still a part of an overarching umbrella of one organization. So that's where
Mm.
collaboration come into play. And we kind of see this within our families, right? Your mom may not have or talk to you or say the same things or have the priorities that your dad has.
Mm.
But you still somehow manage to wade through that and come together as a unit when there is
Mm.
requirement. So um even with like one of the organizations we had a conversation with was about also these dual reporting thing. When
Mm.
we did a game which kind of made them talk to two different entities as in terms of hierarchy. uh
Mm.
there was a huge pushback
Okay.
saying it's not easy. We get stuck between their egos, and this is our reality, blah blah blah, and just so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's when all of this, like, trying to relate it to it actually happens. Imagine
Mm.
how we live in joint families. Like, if you have one set of grandparents living with you, or you have your dad and mom, and you still have to you have to make get what you want out of the whole thing and get approvals, or you want to go out a night
Right.
out, whatever, you figure it out. So it's the
Mm.
same thing. So I think when
Right.
you're able to draw parallels to real life and tell them that it's really not that um it's really not that rare, or it's not like it doesn't happen with you already, or it's not like you haven't developed a muscle, you just haven't applied it here.
Mm. Okay. Okay. And and as a pivot and as a segue from this particular thing, I want to touch upon the last topic for our conversation today, and that is about story beats. Okay, and what I mean by that is, it's just a concept that I learned from a book called Hamlet's Hit Points, and what it means is that stories have beats. Okay, in the sense that there'll be like there's high tension in one scene, and then it goes down, and then again it comes back up, and then again it goes down, and this contrast in tension, right, allows the person who's consuming the story, whether it's the viewer, the listener, the player, whatever, to either lean in for the conversation or lean back for whatever is happening. Now, as an experienced designer, right, that is what we are doing when we are designing our sessions and all that, right? We also face these sort of challenges. For example, if we have to do something right after lunch, right, people's energy levels are going to be like super low. Or if we have to start a new topic at 4:30 in the evening, right, people will come at us with pitchforks and aruvals, right? Or if we have to get them to do some heavy thinky stuff all day, because that is like a lot of taxing mental
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
So I'm sure in your experience you must have observed this concept of high energy and low energy, or these sort of beats, right,
Mm.
within your experiences. And these obviously correlate to attention as well, right? Because
Mhm.
we'll have to approach these sort of states of our audience in different ways. Can you
Right.
talk to me a little bit about what are the different kinds of things that you have seen in terms of high energy or low energy, and what sort of tactics you have deployed to address that situation?
Okay. So, when there's high energy, obviously it's easier for the facilitator to kind of wade through those segments because everybody
Mm.
possibly leans in to just borrow
Mm.
what you said, and you're able to kind of build what you really want. But there
Right.
are definite moments in the day, especially when you have a day-long workshop or a couple of days, when
Hmm.
you do feel energy dips. So,
Right.
uh, one of the times I will even see somebody nodding off or yawning in my face, and
We saw someone do that, didn't we, in
yeah,
Hyderabad? Yeah,
yeah,
we did.
does happen. And I had one guy who actually came up to me and said, thank God you gave me a coffee break now because last 15 minutes I zoned out. I had no idea what you were saying. So
Right.
everybody is really good at like these screensaver faces and they're just nodding along. So it kind of looks like they're listening to you and they're
Yeah.
paying attention,
Oh,
but
I love
it's
that phrase, screensaver face.
yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
but they're not really listening at all. So I think when that happens, one of the things I lean into is definitely movement. I don't want people
Okay.
sitting down too long.
Uh-huh.
So maybe I would love if every 30 minutes I can get them up, but usually
Mm-hmm.
it may not always be possible. But 60 to 90 minutes, I want them to get up, go to a corner, read something on a wall, or scan a QR code, or do something. Worst case scenario, just give in coffee breaks, let them go, wash their face, come back, or have a sip of coffee, come back. Um, Other things that I think work is when, especially when you have heavy thinking stuff, is to
Mm-hmm.
get people to work together rather than alone.
Oh, right.
Because I feel like, when I'm alone, I can pretend to look busy and switch off and do something else and be checking my phone under the table or some
Right.
such. But when I'm in a group, somehow, again, the motivators come in, right? Maybe I am
Mm.
someone who wants to look good or sound intelligent or
Mm.
else. Like I want to drive the conversation, I want to lead the conversation, and that gives me a high. So all of these other dynamics come into play, which
Mm-hmm.
kind of care of the outcome we want to drive versus
Okay.
giving.
So movement and group work and just like a mental state break, right?
Yeah,
These are the three things that you deploy to overcome a low energy state in the audience. Is that
yeah.
accurate?
And I think
Okay.
maybe energizers of sorts, something funny.
What is an energizer? I mean, I know, of course, because I've got Google, but for those who are just listening on air, go on.
Energizer is like a really short activity that energizes people, literally that.
Holy shit. Are you serious? Dang. Nobody could have guessed.
It's like really funny ones.
Hmm.
So it gets people laughing, and I think that kind of brings up energy again. Uh, the one I was going to do that day, Baba, Baby, Boom, or Born, or whatever that was, it's really
No,
funny.
sorry. That just brought up very uncomfortable memories of Bangkok. So no boom boom. I'm just saying.
Yeah, so I just use stuff like that because then everybody is laughing and they're like, okay, chalo, theek hai. Now you're back in the room and here's like some more things to think through or work through or whatever. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to very quickly summarize all the main ways that I learned out from you about hacking attention. Okay, so humor is definitely one. Second is flow state and trying to trigger flow state as much as possible. Third is having multiple approaches for different categories or buckets within the audience itself. Fourth is establishing connection, where it's not just about having opinion, but reflecting back their reality to them, and that can obviously be done um, not I hesitate to call it small talk, but it's like genuine investment in other people and conversation. And really helps if your social battery is pretty high for that, no doubt. And of course, we spoke about games and game-based learning and how games allow people to kind of bring out that inner child that's been there. So it helps them experience a novel emotion, and therefore you have their attention as well. But beyond that, you can also engineer these games such that you can direct people to feeling a certain way, or reach a certain epiphany. And then we also spoke about high energy stuff. I mean, if the people are already in high energy, it's kind of easy to kind of like go full on kung fu panda on them, like, and then like, like direct their attention in a specific way. But if it's low energy, you spoke about coffee breaks, getting them to move, a brand new word called energizers, and working in groups. And of course, one important thing that you mentioned, and I think is perhaps the most important one, is that of context. Whether you're speaking to a 6-year-old or to a middle manager with like a comb over and a bald spot that I can still see because I'm 6'4", context matters. Oh, and
Absolutely.
and humor. Yes, I made you laugh. Ha ha.
And I think storytelling and different kinds of
Yes.
learners we spoke about as well. So to just sort
Mhm.
of cater all of them in. And to top it off, if you are like Arvind, then you will have charisma and that'll top everything and put like a cherry on the cake.
Da, da, da. All the audio listeners can't see me dancing. Anyways, thank you for this, Deepthi. I'm going to give you about one or two paragraphs so that you can wrap up. And then please tell us any final closing thoughts. Also, tell me any closing thoughts you have, and where people can find you online.
Okay. So, closing thoughts, I think I would still, if I have to, like, if there's one thing you're
You don't
walking,
have to. I mean,
okay,
but sure.
one thing I would like people to remember is really about connection. If you want to make impact, especially in large groups, it's really about connection over everything else. If that's the one thing you remember from the whole conversation, I think that's golden. You can find me at Deepthi Bodupally on LinkedIn. It's Boddupally, and Deepthi, I'm a South Indian, Deepthi. So that's me.
All right, Macha. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing all this with me. All right. I'll see
All
you
right.
later. Bye.